very proud that we have opened our second data center in Mombasa. This is a data center that we built in about 11 months. We commenced construction last year, March, and we had customers through the door already in February, but we fully commissioned the building a few months ago. This data center is a state-of-the-art custom-built data center to allow 4 different undersea subsystems to terminate in the building. A unique facility across the world. I would say within the top 10 such facilities, if not 5, from a perspective of capability and design. We currently have 1 subsystem that will terminate into the building. The data center itself can handle about 1.8 megawatts of power, and we have 2 separate data halls. Each data hall is about 600 square meters, and we have fitted out 1, and we're in the process of building the next one. Our data centers are designed with redundant power. Primary power comes from the generators, but of course we use the grid because it is cheaper. We provide 99.99% uptime, which basically means the data centers never go down. Data centers are built for 25 years of ability to operate. This is particularly interesting because we have dedicated lines from KPLC, which only come to us and to no other parties. We have a number of data centers in Kenya. None of them have ever gone down. We've always provided 100% availability. We expect that the internet in Kenya over the next 5 to 6 years will be centered around this building, as some of these new subsea systems that come in are very, very large in capacity and will continue to have increased usage from what is a very young population in our country. The data center itself is equipped with 4 large generators, each of over a megawatt. We have gas in each of the data halls. It's a gas suppressant, so in case there's a fire. We have cooling, which is able to basically cool over 1.8 megawatts of fresh air that come into the buildings. And we also have distinct meet-me rooms, each of which basically allow various carriers to come in. We would expect up to 50 different carriers to be in this building in the next few years. So, if you were to ask me, this now becomes one of the more important telecom infrastructure digital assets in Kenya already in the next 4 years. So by 2026, 27, we'd start seeing a lot of traffic going through this. So I think over a period of a few years, we would have invested more than 2 billion shillings in this building, just in the building. For the way we have built since the first building we opened in 2017, we have always built ahead of the demand. And some of the reason is the demand never shows up if you don't have the infrastructure. It's that horse and cart issue. So we have always predicted what that demand would be and then modeled our building. So the size of the building, the amount of infrastructure is based on fairly deep market study. So at this stage, we do feel that there is enough demand to fill this building up and potentially even more as we acquire land parcels adjacent to this building. So I would say it looks good. So I think what ICOLO does is building infrastructure which are fundamentally benefiting only the consumers. So the Wananchi and people that consume anything on the internet. So you should expect better efficiency, so less latency. You should expect to be able to consume more data for the same quantity of money, essentially reducing costs. And I think certainly overall, more services coming online because of this sort of infrastructure. So including outside the country, but also as we develop more products here, basically built out by our Silicon Savannah colleagues, we should expect more of that to come online through sites like this, which eventually all benefit the consumer. So I think that way Kenya is many steps ahead of most of the world, right? And for good or wrong, we are actually almost unbeatable when it comes to that track record. Today, the generation in the country, 95% of it is, according to ERC, renewable. It's green. In most parts of the country, most parts of the world, it's under 10%. Some as low as 2%. So, whilst data centers is a concern in many other parts of the world, actually what we do and what we use here is very, very sustainable. As a company, we also have invested heavily in solar, and solar is also limited by the amount of space you have. So if you go to some of our other buildings, we've put solar everywhere, on the generators, roofs, in the garden, just to basically harness the power of the energy. So we are certainly aligning ourselves in that direction. In 2021, based on what we got from the grid and the amount of solar we had, we were 100% carbon neutral facility, perhaps the only one in East Africa. And we're very focused and committed to building our strategies around that, because it's an important part for the survival of the human race to begin with, and of course the planet to be a place to be around for many generations. It's a good question. Layman's language. So let me explain it with the analogy of a mall. So you have the person that builds the mall, but they don't run the shops. So what happens is they take care of the parking, they take care of the cleaning, making sure there's enough power. So if you think about people having computer infrastructure, what we do is we provide the buildings for it, and each individual operator operates a shop in our building. That's what server infrastructure looks like. So we provide purely infrastructure, power and cooling, and that's what data centers are. Our customers bring software, servers, hardware into the buildings, and then they connect using connectivity partners like Safaricom, Liquid, and so on and so forth to basically connect. So in general, without that initial layer of the building, the power, the cooling, nothing actually would Kenya is better placed for many reasons. One, I think we did very good work 15 years ago when we opened up the telecom policies in the country, which has really helped people like us think about building infrastructure here. And actually our neighboring countries are still catching up in many ways, shape or form. We have a very good regulator who's open-minded and at the same time brings the best practices across the world. And a good example is that the number of options consumers have today when it comes to connectivity, not so much on mobile, but fiber to the home, those sort of things. I think we are at least 5 to 10 years ahead of many countries in the region. Geographically, because we also refer to Mombasa as the gateway to Africa because of the cable systems coming in. I think geographically we're also well positioned to service, within 30 milliseconds you're able to get to about 300 million people. It's not necessarily the same. Some of that is because of the networks we've built over the last 15 to 20 years, but it is also the fact that we have an open access system in general in the country to be able to tap into different networks in surrounding countries like from South Sudan, to Rwanda, to Uganda. That is a very unique position that we have in Kenya, and certainly because of Mombasa. We opened in 2017. We opened this in 2022, so I would say less time. So we've spent more than 2 billion shillings, or we will by the time we fit it out. So one of the things that you do as a business is you also delay the capex over a period of time as the building gets full, right? So by the time we're done, we will spend more than 2 billion shillings. So I think you're right, it could be the 8th, but what is certain is it's not the last cable. I would expect more cables to show up in the next 2 or 3 years. So you'll see brand new announcements, because for the volume of people that are in Kenya and the region, there's still a requirement for more systems to come into the country. So I would say that as more systems come in, there's more competition, there's more volume. When there's more volume, generally pricing goes down remarkably. So I would say over the next 10 years, you wouldn't really think about the cost of data anymore. It becomes so ubiquitous that actually I don't think it'll be very expensive. Business models have also changed. So some of the investors that have come in the cable systems have invested in the cable systems, but they have nothing to do with cable systems. The reason they're doing that is because they're specifically targeting the consumers. So they are subsidizing the cable systems and the connectivity into the country. So there's no cost now for some of those links. As you may have seen with some of the applications on your phone, it's zero rated. That's because of these investments. So I would definitely say data in itself as a cost will continue to remarkably reduce.
Are you also eyeing the Equiano cable?
Equiano cable unfortunately stops in South Africa, starts in Portugal, ends in South Africa. So no, we're not. And that is a cable that was invested in by Google. But I'm certain that they are buying capacity in the new subsystems on the East Coast. So I think in the end, you'll find a little bit of both. So I think one of the things that you can't underestimate, the continued growth in the economy, in the number of people. When we got independence, there was 6 million people in Kenya. Today, we have 55 million people, and the bulk of these people are living on the internet. So I can only see the demand in co-location going upwards. But of course, it will be in line with the growth in the GDP. The structure of our GDP is very agrarian, so as a result of that, the accessible part for co-location is smaller than, say, South Africa or slightly more. However, it's growing much faster, right? So I think there is a pace discussion. The big steps are often not because there's more retail colocation customers, it's because larger investments are coming from platforms around the world, by which I mean the cloud players. They require very large, resilient systems, and that eventually makes us take big steps in providing colocation. I also think, and one of the things for the Ole question is, you can't build cloud systems in every single country in East Africa. There's always going to be one leading country, which is almost certainly going to be Kenya. So you will see a disproportional growth in Kenya over anybody else in the region, in a matter of almost 1 to 10, if not even more, simply because of our geographic location, some of the policies we've had before. So I would say that colocation in the region will grow well, but in Kenya certainly much better.